I think it was in May 2006, when a representative from Poland, Denmark, and Sweden met to discuss the raised issue by the Commission. Shouldn't you have an Interreg program up here?
So who had that idea?
I don't know, someone in the European Commission, but there was a program in the 90s where the managing authority was on Bornholm and for all the southern shore of the Baltic Sea, but it stopped in 99. So there were some years without any program, and that's the new discussion started in 2006.
Isn't it a shame that the managing authority is no longer on Bornholm?
No, I'm very happy that it's here.
Oh, you're very happy?
Yes.
Okay. So 2006, that was just 2 years after Poland and so many other countries have joined the European Union. You would have this wide perspective of the changes, because sometimes we can be sad that some recent developments didn't work out as much as we wanted to, but you would have this hindsight perspective.
Even longer, because I was here in Valmir, Missouri region to prepare them for the structural funds back in 2000. So, and it's great to see. It's a really great development which have been here in Poland.
Can you give an example of what you've seen around the years?
I would say the infrastructure now going on the way here. Right. But also, I think also the employment. When I started here more than 20 years ago, the employment in some municipalities were more than 60%. And you will not find this today. So that's another.
Oh, you mean unemployment rate was really high?
Yes, the unemployment rate was more than 60 up in some of the municipalities. And in general, it was quite high in Poland. And now it's somehow the opposite. Poland is in a better part of European countries, I think.
That might be right, especially with unemployment being very, very low. And now I'll turn to Mr. Sławomir, who has this multinational perspective, because you emigrated to Sweden some 10 years ago. So you've also seen some changes. Were you able to see some changes that are somehow connected to our programs as well?
Before I answer that question, I would like to refer to what Niels said when it comes to that meeting in 2006, probably. It was right after the big fire in Gdańsk of the, which church was it in the old part of Gdańsk? Maybe some of you, St. Catherine's, exactly. Okay. Yeah, we had a meeting at the Historical Museum. And I do not want to question, of course, the willingness from the Commission to help the regions and all the actors in the Baltic Sea region in cross-border cooperation, but this was actually also a result of regional efforts. It was regions within, for example, Eurasia Baltic, that came up with the idea and lobbied for the establishment of the program. Just historical. Sorry.
It's very good, Sławek. Thank you.
But I think what and this is again, I met Niels somewhere in 2003, I think. This was really the beginning of the cross-border cooperation between here in the South Baltic. So even the connectivity, for example, was a big issue. I came here on Sunday with a direct flight from Vekwe, not a big city, to Gdańsk, and it takes 55 minutes. 2003, it was the beginning when Stena line was actually operating between Karlskrona and Gdynia, and it was the only viable option. Yes, and then it was still a lot of uncertainty if this will pay off, if if Stena line will be able to continue. Today we'll see that they introduce new ferries. They have 3 connections a day. It's not only passengers; it's a lot of cargo traveling between. These two sides of the Baltic Sea. So that is very feasible, very tangible effect of what's been happening in the past years. And of course, it's not all thanks to the South Baltic Programme, but South Baltic Programme has had its share of these successes and changes.
And that makes me wonder, because the program that we're talking about tends to be research and development. So we're not really building infrastructure as such. And so it might be challenging to give a tangible example, right?
Well, it is not strictly research and development program, definitely not. But it's of course not an infrastructural program. There is not enough money to produce infrastructure, but a lot of projects do have pilots. A lot of projects test things that they develop during the projects, and I mean, it can be anything from wastewater installations, for example, that are introduced as a result of South Baltic projects.
So that makes me very hopeful, because this meeting today is about the positive examples, the things that worked out, especially because later during the day we will have this meeting to present projects, and we will have a networking session, and they are all aimed at bringing us closer, but also really giving this chance to work together, because many times only when partners really partner up, they come closer, Niels, is when things start to work out, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So how do you see that? Is that because of resources, finance, or because cooperation is just always better than working lonely?
Both, I would say.
Okay.
But I think the approach in the European Union, many would say European Union is very top-down, something decided in Brussels, and then we can take it. My experience for many years, 30 years around, is the opposite. That you have a framework, you have a budget framework, you have some overall objectives politically, green transition, digitalization, etc. But when it comes to the program, like the South Baltic program, it's bottom up. It's a grassroots process. It means what are the needs, what are the interests from each participating region. So this is one thing I think is very important to understand. When you come to the local society, when you come to the citizens, it's even important. You will never succeed with a green transition if you do not have your local citizen and societies on board. Never. Even talk about energy, circular economy or water. So that's the main points.
That's nice, because there's always this talk about lack of democracy in the European Union, how this is so centralized. And so such programs are quite the opposite of what is thought of the European Union. And probably truth is in the middle somewhere.
Well, I would say, of course, there are in the framework which we have to operate within. Of course, there are something we don't like on the floor, and but I think it's often there are fair conditions to ensure that you will have this result-oriented development. So, but of course, there are also always something you don't like in this framework.
Okay, we'll talk about some of the examples from Sweden a little bit later, but just as Niels has mentioned the fact that we need to have this bottom-up approach and talk to people and the local community, I wanted to talk to the vice mayor of the Putzk commune, Piotr Neubauer. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Mayor, about an example of a project where people were on board from the very beginning.
Well, let me pick where my colleague just said. I'm not that long with the South Baltic because it's just from 2010. Okay.
That's still good. It's long. Still good. Yeah.
And I've been through two big South Baltic projects, of which one was the flagship. I've been through seed money projects, and I've been expert in another one, an umbrella project. Talking about what just Niels said, he said something that bottom-up in South Baltic is visible. And why is that? It's just because of the people who are constructing this. Let me just give you an example. I'm sorry to say that one of my colleagues, very good colleague from Sweden, Mr. Ola Runfors, who was also with South Baltic for some years, is absent here. But once he said something very important about this particular project, like Interreg, like particularly South Baltic. You just said about infrastructure, and it's not about infrastructure, not exactly about building things or making surveys or making research. He said something, it's about crossing the boundaries between people. It's all about having us come together, sit together, think about ideas, yeah, and exchange ideas. There was many different stories throughout the particular projects that I've been through, and my colleagues told me about, and other ones as well. It's just about cultural differences.
Tell me.
We are all like from the same region, yeah. But let me briefly tell you a story about Polish way of understanding the rules. You are looking at me, and it's not going to be about financial issues, which I absolutely understand what you just said about. That lots of work needed.
We're very interested.
Once we've been to Lithuania. Imagine table Lithuanians, Poles, Swedes, and
was Valdas there?
No.
Okay.
We asked the Lithuanian colleagues if they could hunt for a beaver. Beaver, yeah. Imagine a beaver. Beaver is a water creature, yeah, that sits in water, and he's a tail, yeah. And then that's the Polish way of understanding the rules, which Swedes were not aware of. Because in, like let's say 300 years ago, if there was a time that you cannot eat meat, because of the religious reasons, yeah, you are not supposed to eat meat during Fridays and other days. But the Poles developed, okay, but we can eat beaver's tail. Why? Because it's sitting in water, and it's almost like a fish, so it's hardly... And the Swedes were like, I'm not sure if I understand this, but it's a Polish way of treating the rules.
Okay.
So it's all about going through the boundaries, exchanging the ideas of the different people, but we are all learning from each other.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is probably something that only Polish people would understand, but in our language we have this verb that's kombinować. Yep. And it's a creation.
Creativity, innovativeness, yeah. That's the case, not that one.
Okay. So it doesn't have anything to do with a Greek accounting system or something like that?
Absolutely no.
No. Okay. So you were saying that the boundaries existed and that these talks, like talking about beaver, for lack of a better example, would help make a better connection between people, and that's what is a starter of something bigger?
Yes, absolutely. If you, because there was also another case. For many years, as Niels said, you were traveling to Poland many years ago. You saw high unemployment rate in rural areas or small towns, and people with no perspectives, and so on and so on. Yeah.
Color on the houses.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Niels was.
I said no color on the houses.
Yeah.
Oh, there was
everything
no
gray.
color on the houses.
Yeah, gray. Yeah. And when people like Niels, people like Stephan, people like my colleague Ola, other guys, they were sitting together. At first, Poles, Lithuanians would be treating you, and I'm sure you could agree with that, as kind of a teachers. Oh yeah, someone from Denmark came.
Like the mentor.
Yes, like the mentor. He knows what he's saying, and then there's gonna be some nice time if we do this or that. And then after a few years, and that's a change that actually happened. It's not anymore mentor and a student or teacher. It's equal. We learn from each other. We see each other as, it's not like the Danes or the Swedes or Germans can learn from, can teach us, the Lithuanians, but we learn from each other, and it's not anymore a case. That's very big case. And so the houses are not gray anymore.
Yeah, I think it does call for an applause. Stephan, did you also have these moments when you thought that the conversation was that of a student and a teacher back in the day, and that today it's different, or maybe you've been in the project for just a recent time?
Well, I've been in this particular program for almost 7 years now. But me as a person, I've been part of this region my whole life. I don't want to go too far back, but I've been in Berlin when the wall came down, and that kind of marked an important starting for something that we all were, at least in the East, were waiting for, to, you know, go back to that common cultural, economic area we kind of belonged for a long time. Now I'm living at the Baltic Sea in one of the old Hanseatic towns that kind of are a brilliant analogy for what we're doing today, to kind of get to know each other, trade, learn from each other. So this is kind of nice. I've been actually in Frankfurt-Oder and Słubice when Poland joined the EU, and I still remember how we celebrated back then. So this story didn't start with this program, but this program is kind of a natural way to facilitate the ideas and the hopes. So I would absolutely agree with what my colleague just told, that this is not artificial top-down, but this is something to enable us in the region to continue this integration, to benefit from the cohesion potential that is within the region, and yeah, it's a nice way to be part of it.
Do you remember a moment when you started to believe and see the potential in this project, when you saw, oh, this could work?
Well, definitely. In my previous role, I was working with the University of Rostock, and we are traditionally quite active in the program. So I know a lot of these projects, and basically all of them, they are so brilliant. Every time I read about the project, I notice, wow, this is something I didn't come up, or that wasn't. It didn't meet the eye at first, but then it makes so much sense to go into detail about, let's say, coastal protection, how to deal with the ever-growing issue with water pollution in the Baltic Sea, and how to actually do it cross-border, because it's obviously the South Baltic region is a cross-border region with something that has to deal with the Baltic Sea. So there's so many projects that deal with it on different levels and with different people from all socioeconomic partners. So it's always surprising what people come up with.
That's good. Is SB oil one of the examples that you've been into?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Even though oil might be short in the near future, but generally we have the issue of oil spill in the Baltic Sea and water pollutants of all sorts. So SB oil was a brilliant way to demonstrate how cross-border cooperation on that particular issue can work.
So you worked on these on this spill response through cleanup biogenic oil binders.
Yeah, well, I wasn't working on that because I'm not a scientist. I was working with the university project management, but yeah.
Has one other person in here worked on the SB oil? No, so that's a project maybe from back in the day. Has anyone in the room come across this project, SB oil? Okay.
Good example.
Yeah, beginnings are tough. So maybe I hand it over to our Lithuanian guest. So the deputy mayor has mentioned the beaver example, and I don't know why, but he didn't just speak of Poland, but also Lithuania. So do you think that there's a lot that connects Poland and Lithuania? Valdas?
Yeah, I think that such example connects in Lithuania, and we also are similar to Polish. Okay. And we can find the solutions the same as you.
So, no, it just means that
we're cousins.
We're very solution-oriented, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what people say these days. So, Valdas, can you tell me about one example of a project that you've been into in Lithuania and in your region?
that's a bit pity because our organization it's established only last year, like Klaipėda Region Development Council, and 10 organizations like this were established last year in Lithuania, and we were not participated in this program before. As organizations, they were councils, but without the organization, and it was a great time for me to, before coming here, to talk to the project partners from Lithuania about their projects, to understand them, how they applying, what challenges they faced.
Can you give us one example of what your project partners were talking about?
Yeah, I talked to several of them before coming here, and almost all of them told that they had questions and challenges with COVID situation. COVID, yeah, because all the meetings moved to the internet, to the web meetings instead of face-to-face meetings. But also there is other side of this post-COVID situation, that partners understood that they can save time in traveling, and now when it's possibility to choose online meeting or face-to-face meeting, the majority chooses online meetings. One more thing today is also was mentioned, it's a war in Ukraine, and those who wanted to come to Lithuania, they were asking if it's safe in Lithuania, and because we have border with Russia, and extra explanations were needed, and generally in all tourism sector we had challenges because a lot of trips were cancelled.
So you're saying that the risk of Russia and Russian invasion on Ukraine has affected the Lithuanian tourism?
Yeah, it's affected, and in some events of the project events, when the extra explanations needed that it's safe in Lithuania, and generally affected Lithuanian tourism. And no doubt, I think it's also affected in other regions. But what I want to mention, one more thing, what I heard from the partners, and what I see, that there is great progress in publicity and marketing of the project results. If we remember previous periods in programs, that we were thinking how to save the project results, where to put them, what to do when the web pages will be closed. Now situations change totally, because project implementers, partners, they move to the social media, and they put all information in YouTube channels, in other channels, and even after 10 years, we'll see the results of our projects on internet, even then when the web pages will be closed.
So I think, Sławomir, thank you, Valdas. What Valdas has been saying is maybe a good background for the further story that we could develop here, because he's mentioned virtual calls and how we all have changed, because we many times would choose to meet somebody online rather than travel somewhere, which is more sustainable. But there are still moments like this one when we really appreciate the time to be here together. So that's the first thing.
We have been discussing a little bit about this coming program 2021-27, and of course the program we heard will be approved in September, hopefully, but we already know what is the proposed contents, and there are different themes, different priorities in the program that have been selected as in a long process, and the process that included, of course, a lot of deliberations around EU policies, but also regional strategies. So it's carefully selected priorities with also balanced budget around those priorities. But we've been in Swedish regions thinking a little about the changing environment, what is happening around us in this context. And digitalization, if we want to call it like that, is one thing. That's what's been happening. What's been accelerated actually by COVID-19 pandemic is an important challenge, and I think this refers, of course, to digital literacy, to digitalization of services and products, a very wide range of topics that we think as Swedish regions again, but I think it's shared everywhere as an important challenge for the future, something that the program could definitely help with.
So the changes in people's behaviors, they have also been reflected in the program, and
absolutely.
It works.
If you look at the projects that have been that start before the pandemic, they had to change. They had to change the plans. They had to change. Sometimes maybe or suspend a few activities, but at the same time there was this willingness to continue and to reach the objectives that were planned. They were just reached in a different way. The working methods were different.
Can you tell us about a project that was being developed during the pandemic and how it all was possible?
Well, I cannot give you any specific example at this moment, but we're talking about a number of projects that started before the pandemics and had to adjust during the process. So I think that its colleagues here from the Secretariat that can give more examples and more detailed information. But I think in our regions that has been a very common occurrence. So I think that's a very, very, very something that we need to. That's one of the lessons that we need to take and carry on to the next programming period.
Yeah. When the six of us met online to prepare this meeting, one of you has mentioned floating islands, which was a project to clean the water in the south in the Baltic region. Was that you, Valdas?
Yeah, as I told, I was not participating in any project, but I had the possibility to talk with the lead partners from Lithuania, and one of the project it was live lagoons, floating islands.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing experiments of these floating islands in Lithuania, in Poland, and in Germany, and hope there is project members here, but.
Is there somebody that was responsible for floating islands?
Live lagoons, yeah.
Live lagoons? It doesn't seem like...
Okay.
There is one person.
Okay, I will tell more that they were installed in 3 countries, and islands are planted of native plants. And the plants removes phosphates and nitrogen from the eutrophicated waters.
Right. The nitrogen that gets to the sea because of the rivers and because of farming.
Yeah.
And because of the big cities.
Yeah, and I saw one example in Euronews when they were talking about this project, that one island through the year removing nutrients produced by 2 or 3 families.
Yes, so one floating island, which I don't think would be much bigger than such a table, maybe 4 of them. They are not big, right, Valdas?
No, it's bigger than
it
this
is bigger.
table, yeah.
Okay, when I saw the video, I didn't see the perspective, so I couldn't compare it to anyone.
Maybe it could be 10 meters long or 8 meters
10 meters long.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is bigger, but it seems to be covered with grass, with soil, and what it does, it cleans the water, and you say it amounts to like 2 or 3 families' usage of the phosphorus or the nitrogen that they produce a year, right?
Yeah, and it's more like it's more project that can be used in public sector. Then maybe later it can be commercialized, but at first it can be used as a marketing projects. Mm-hmm. Such islands can attract tourists.
Oh.
In one side also, such islands helps to make water quality better, but also such islands are shelter for the birds and for the fish
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a great example, Valdas. And I think one of our colleagues here has actually been involved in this project. Is that true?
Yes, hello. I was just involved as an external cooperator with Wolyński National Park, which was the associated partner. But as a good example of how to involve local communities, Wolyński National Park now will try to become a project partner in a new perspective with a new, yes, because there is an idea of how to implement such an ideas of nature management into local communities and tourism. So how to improve tourism aspects by the ideas of nature restoration, and so how to focus the ideas of local people on tourism development. So from associated partner to project partner, hopefully.
So there is a chance for capitalization, right? Which is great because we're hopeful for the next perspective. You said that talking to local people was important. That was a big part?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And they were interested in being part of it?
Yes, some, sure. For many people and small communities, being involved in European project is something really new and really big. So now seeing that this is a big opportunity, especially for young people, for education sector, for communication, yes. Yeah.
What's your name?
Martina Rabska-Osipowicz.
Okay, really nice to talk to you, Martina. I think that's a great example, and I'm glad that our audience members are joining, because it's really just us talking to each other. I wanted to talk to Niels, because Valdas' example was great, but I think in Bornholm area, you guys are doing stuff about trash. You want to make sure that trash is not just collected next to your house, but that we can meet in the halfway, sort of, so that it's more sustainable again.
Well, that's a part of it, yes, absolutely. It's a project, it's called Wasteman, and it's about waste management. And there are a lot of joint challenges among our countries, especially in those small towns where the very small roads in the center and houses are built together.
So it'd be hard for this big truck.
Big truck coming in to pick up the waste. We also have summer houses with some other kind of challenges. So this was what Wasteman was about. And it's a huge discussion also in Bornholm these days, because now we have to learn, the citizens, how to sort the waste and in 10 different items, and also those of us who have our own house, we have to bring it out to the road, etc. So there are a lot of discussion, but the Wasteman help very much to analyze and together with the citizens in 2 specific areas on Bornholm, try to find solutions, so they had a very clear citizen involvement.
Do you think that there might be somebody from the project present in this room who's also been part of this project? Wasteman?
I don't know.
Who knows?
See, anyone involved in the Wasteman? It was Poland, Sweden. I think no, they're not here.
Okay, so I think what was really nice about this project again was people's participation. I think some of the inhabitants even came up with an idea of a vehicle, what it could look like. The vehicle that will collect all the types
You're
of
right.
trash.
And also try to, because in these very tight areas in the towns and so on, you cannot just bring it out to the road from each house. You have to make some islands where you can put the waste in different fractions.
I wonder, Niels, if in this project or maybe in some other of your projects that you've done in your job, have there been any mistakes that you've made? Because we're here with the people who will run their own projects, and maybe there's something that at the beginning you thought was different, but you learned that it's supposed to be done differently.
I'm not good at remembering mistakes, especially not my own. But I would say two advice. First of all, as a project maker, you need to distinguish between beneficiaries and those directed to be involved as a project partner and the target group. I think that's quite crucial in our program. And when you talk about local society and citizens, we are among the target group. And here the advice will be really to involve the citizens, this target group, really to address them, not just to make new technologies and other things. You have to test it, you have to try it out, and also involve the citizens. But whatever the result will be also on Bornholm as for the waste, it's not always popular, because still you can find results which not all citizens will agree in.
Mm-hmm. Like that you have to sort your trash into 10 categories,
for example.
Which is a lot of work. It seems like that.
Crazy for people like me, at least. I want to be on the sofa and look television. No, it's. I think everybody agrees that we have to do something, of course. So everybody's willing to do something, but still, I think you will never find a perfect solution when you have to do things like sort waste.
Sławomir, thank you, Niels. Do you have an idea of how to put this advice into action, what Niels was talking about, that you never forget about the target group that you have? Do you also have your thoughts about that?
I might have my thoughts. I don't know if it's good advice. There's always a risk that somebody will follow and it will not work. So
we'll meet here next year and they'll have a chance to talk to you.
But I think it's awareness. When we think about building projects, it's of course awareness not only of what we think needs to be done, and somehow also confronting it with the needs of the local communities that the projects will somehow address. It's the awareness also of what's being done in this particular area. We have to know. Maybe there have been other projects before that have already made some progress. We have to make this kind of reference to also in the application form. Of course, we have to, when we describe the project relevance, so it has to be well investigated before, quite simply, and that of course leads to the selection, of course, of the project partners, the ones that we want to work with. And there was a question somewhere about target groups and ideal project partners. They have to be relevant for the project idea, for what it is that the project wants to achieve.
So that they have some expertise.
So they have the expertise. Well, you have to think about, of course, the expertise, the knowledge transfer. Maybe if there is some development, what are the experts that need to be involved? Also, how to disseminate the results, what kind of channels and so on. Is it the public authorities that need to be, for example, because they have a role in decision processes? Do we need to involve the public authorities? Do we need to involve national authorities? Sometimes also relevant. So it really is case-to-case work here.
Yeah, makes sense. And we have some ideas from our guests, and it'd be great to hear from you, sir.
Well, my name is Niels Hollander. I'm a medical oncologist from Denmark. And it's the first time we are here in this very nice area. We have been here a lot of times to have good colleagues. We have found some good colleagues.
Good to have you.
The question to the panel, because we are in the healthcare sector, when we are doing research and innovation, we are extremely dependent upon data collection and data exchange. So concerning the top down, the bottom up, I kindly ask you to provide some information to the top that we want some GDPR rules that are coherent with what we are doing.
So you're asking that we tell somebody, and somebody is...
The EU.
The EU.
Yes.
What do we need to tell them?
To smoothen up the GDPR rules we all have to handle upon today. And of course, there is a security issue seen from, for example, from a patient's perspective.
Oh.
But to develop scientific results you need a lot of data, and coming together in a larger region, you're more fast, can collect the data, but you should be able to look upon each other data. We have been lucky to work together with the Schleswig-Holstein Institute of Cancer Research, and by anonymization of the data, we could actually, as the first project ever, exchange data from Germany and Denmark, and we know it's rather difficult to get data out of Germany. But it is the DPR rules and those that...
Oh, it's the general directive on...
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the famous GDPR.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help you at all.
It helps the security for the data concerned to the patient, but in the larger perspective, to advance scientific research, you have to interchange data.
I wonder if any of you has a comment.
Yes, I know very clearly what you mean, and thank you. And it's very relevant, especially for, as you say, health research. You want to run together these data banks in order to help the research and development of new technology. Highly relevant. Unfortunately, well, we can, as you said, bottom up, we can tell the people above, but unfortunately, it's beyond the South Baltic Programme competences really to change the directives. But we fully agree that that's a problem, that's a challenge.
I wonder if anyone else has ideas about data protection. Because I guess maybe in your work it was a challenge to do so, to work with data. Sir?
As far as I know, there will be at least 2 or 3 projects running at seed money projects addressing this topic. One is related to cybersecurity. One is related to data for health, so especially focusing on exchange of data, healthcare data. And one, I think you are from the cancer project idea. Yeah, and I think your project is also addressing this topic with the digitalization. And I think this is somehow a starting point that also we in the South Baltic try to discuss more how to exchange, find ways how to exchange data according to GDPR regulations. And if it's possible to exchange between Denmark and Germany, you will definitely find also possibilities to exchange with the other countries, because the interpretation of the GDPR in Germany is one of the most strictest in the EU. So it should be easier with the other countries. So maybe it's a little bit a hope that you will manage it very well.
So there is some optimism after all. Because there are some people from Germany who are not as optimistic.
And I was on the weather, not on Germany.
Makes sense. Thank you for the comments. I wonder if it helps anyhow, that comment, if it helps you.
Of course, but the general problem is that we all should aware of that we are dependent on the data exchange.
That seems like a big issue. We are dependent on data exchange, and I can imagine that in the medical industry it is very sensitive and just very hard to do. I'd like to turn to Piotr, because this seems a good time for you to tell us about your thoughts on what we've been talking about, or maybe a project that was close to your heart.
Okay. Well, the thoughts that come to my mind after what my colleague just said is that we have different dimensions in this kind of a project. I will always be highlighting this very important dimension is the people. And the people can be perceived in 2 levels. People that are directly was just an example that actually came out right in this room. We've been asking if you know this project or you know that project, and then as you can see, the people, maybe there is one person, yeah, but there are other people that never showed up here. And I don't know why. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe they changed the organization. Maybe the organization is not interested anymore in this cooperation. And this is also my case, yeah. And I saw this that when I left actually the state forests and my colleague in the Skogsstyrelsen in Sweden left Skogsstyrelsen. Actually, he did not leave Skogsstyrelsen itself, but he left that department that was about structural funds and international cooperation. Somehow the cooperation disappeared. And so the dimension of the cooperation on the organizational level is built on the people, built on the bonds between each other. And then that's one dimension.
And I just wanted to say that there's always this risk of discontinuation.
Absolutely.
Especially when we have the perspectives that just finish.
Yep.
This is actually also why we're meeting here today, because we're hoping that when we have the networking, when we have the project presentations, that we talk to each other and that hopefully there is a capitalization in place.
That's the case. And going further, being deputy mayor of a small Kashubian commune, Puck commune, not to mix it up with the Puck town, because it's different. It's not the same.
I would never mix this.
Well, yeah, it's Puck commune is all around Puck town. It's rural areas, yeah. And Puck town itself, they have their own mayor, and it's a town, and we are rural areas. And then what Niels said, the case of, let's say, this particular project about waste management, yeah. I participate in many meetings with the local people, local inhabitants, and they yell at us, why do we do this with the waste management this way, not the other way? Maybe we should think about something else. So how can we do this, yeah?
People are frustrated?
They're frustrated, and for many times I have to explain that it's not just an issue of what solutions are there on the market or what possibly we could do, but it's also a matter of the law that requires us to do this or that. And that's another dimension that I wanted to mention. It's the law that must somehow follow the results of the projects like that. This is an example of the bottom-up approach, because if we see that there is a need of, let's say, development in the particular issues of waste management, water treatment, or whatever, wherever we go, yeah? And that's a result of a particular project, this somehow should connect to the local, regional, national, or even European Union law. And I know that in the new perspective there will be good governance, yeah, priority. And the good governance, it's not only about how we govern, but also it's about what should we implement to make it run smoothly and go up.
Thank you for saying that. I think dialogue with the people whose interests are at stake is always important. Sławomir, you wanted to react to that?
Yeah, just react. I think it's very relevant. And again, we can come back to this idea when we construct the project, that you look at the responsibilities that different actors have, and you make sure that you have the right actors that have the also legal responsibilities that are relevant in the project. So, but also what you mentioned in the beginning, we have a lot of examples, and I have just admiration to those people that often drive project ideas. We know that often it's the specific people that do it. But something to consider in projects is also what happens after the projects are over. And it's this durability when we think how the results are somehow institutionalized, how they are introduced in across the organizations, that they are not kept with persons, but with actors, with organizations.
Oh, so that is the challenge that we should somehow address here, maybe?
That's something definitely to think about when you're have a great idea and you sit with the project application and you start thinking, okay, so what is it exactly what we're going to do and what happens after that? Yes.
Stephan, what do you think we could do to have a bigger durability of these ideas so that they are not just limited to the time frame?
Well, that's a good question. It always comes down to the participants for once, and it comes down to the priorities within the framework we're working in. And this is a point I would definitely agree with my colleagues. Within this program, we can actually participate not only in the projects, but also in the programming. If you are a stakeholder within the program, you are invited and actually encouraged by the European Commission, by other stakeholders to participate and define what are the rules of the program. That's what we are actually doing for the last couple of months in the different working groups to bring our variety of perspectives into the program, our experience, and make it work better for us, while at the same time try to benefit from the experience from the projects, actually, to exchange and to share the newly gained knowledge or the newly constructed networks within the program area. So this is definitely the two most important things for me, that we learn to actually program such a nice project area and define the rules basically within the framework of Interreg, but at the same time on a meta level basically learn how to find a way to sustainably exchange the outcomes of the projects, make the project outcomes known in a program region, and make it worthwhile working on it.
Piotr, I've seen you wanted to say something earlier. Just very quick.
Maybe not very quick, but well, stop me if I talk too much.
Okay.
The very important issue is that we have to remember that the knowledge that is gained within the particular project must stay within the organization and must not go with the people. You said that, and I'm just highlighting this.
You agree? Who agrees with that?
Okay.
A lot of people.
People change. People change their jobs. They
people
change
come
their
and go.
plans, come and go. But if the organization and this also is connected with some kind of a problem that is actually visible in South Baltic and the like programs. Because if you look at the map and if you look at the list of the organizations, every perspective would show you that more or less the same organizations are participating, yeah? And why is that? Because they've learned how to keep their knowledge, yeah? The universities, the particular communes, big towns, big cities, and the newcomers are either, we use that word shy in the morning, but it's not about being shy, it's about having particular resources to be able to participate. And in the decision makers, when I look at it at this perspective, from the point of view of a deputy mayor of this commune, it's far easier for my boss to say, I've built up 10 kilometers of road, and I've spent on that 10 million Polish zloty, or 20 or whatever, than get involved into a project that doesn't bring a visible, in terms of road, of a school or whatever, results. And it's very, very crucial for the people that are getting involved into that to have the policy makers, have the decision makers understand the need of exchanging the ideas. Because the case is not that I'm not gonna build this road now, but the ideas that I will gather from this point of view may soon get above my time on the chair, but it will stay there, and someone else might develop that into very, very something different that will bring new investments, new workplaces, new people to your place.
That's nice, but it also.
Thank you. Second time.
What happens? You know, I think it has to do with thinking out of politics and not just being interested in winning the next term, but being interested in the community getting better. Niels?
Talking about durability, so I think we are in a very central nerve of the South Baltic Programme. This is not just about cooperation and forming partnerships. This is about forming friendships. So, and I think that's the difference, because of course we will always have projects which have a start and an end. That's it, bye-bye, never see each other again. But I think the value, the added value of the South Baltic area, which we have experienced so much in Euro-Region Baltic, is this more long-lasting friendship where you know each other and you know what expertise the other have, knowledge, and you can cooperate. I think the durability is a critical issue assessed when we have the application form, and forming networks is always a plus in the projects. I think it should really be that way. This is not just about professional partnerships. This is about friendships and really to support and cooperate, to support each other. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.